Hi, everybody. I'm interviewing Debbie Weiss, and she is the author of Available as Is, A Midwife Widow's Search for Love. And she also has an award-winning blog, which is called DebbieWeissAuthor.com, which dispenses empathy and advice on grief and dating after loss. And she's a widow, and I'm also a widow. So I thought that this is going to be really, really interesting to kind of go over each other's experiences and, what we went through. So tell us a little bit about how you met your husband and your marriage and how you became a widow.
Sure. I knew my husband since I was 7 years old, and he was 11. Our parents were family friends. And we started dating when I was a high school senior, and he was a senior at UC Berkeley, majoring in engineering. We were together from when I was 17. And, I went to law school. We were together. We didn't have kids. We got a home together. And then in 2009, he was diagnosed with cancer. And it was metastasized. And we had a few good years after that. But about early 2012, it started to win. And he passed in April of 2013.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's a long relationship.
We had 32 years.
Yeah, I kind of had something similar where I was married for 23 years, and then he also passed away from cancer. Cancer's awful. It's just horrible to go through. And then I was living with a boyfriend for 15 years, and he passed away from cancer. So it's just like cancer sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your husband was actually your only relationship that you had, right?
Yeah, he was it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I was sort of, well, I grew up in the 70s, or the late 60s and early 70s. So it was a little crazy. Yeah, I wasn't quite like that, but that's incredible to have a relationship like that. You're so lucky.
It was. I mean, it was just, we were so insular, it was just the two of us. And I didn't, a few high school dates, but not much else. He was it.
Yeah. So what spurred you to write a book about it?
Well, when I was widowed, I'm a former lawyer, and I'd quit practicing law about 9 years. I was 40 when I quit practicing. So when my husband passed, I had a lot of time, and we'd always done everything together. So, I was really lost, and writing had always been a passion. So I went back to a weekly writing class I was taking before he got sick. And then I got more serious about it. And it just kind of started to happen where I had all these vignettes, and I was like, well, maybe I could put this together. I was looking for something different in a widow book than what was out there. I wanted something that really talked about the desperation, the horrible feelings, the aloneness, what that felt like at 50 to be so unmoored, so angry.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, discombobulated. And I didn't find a lot of stuff that I felt was dealing with the emotions. And then when I started dating about 14 months after he died, it was so crazy and so surreal. I felt like someone had to be writing about this because I couldn't invent these characters.
Yeah,
I mean, these were
imagine.
So bizarre. And then ultimately, as I finished the book, I wanted to offer hope that, we could have a good lives on our own despite this kind of a loss, that you can feel some, you don't get over it, but you feel the debilitating sadness passes and that you can have a good life on your own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was really getting to me. I was like reliving some of those feelings, that you have. And as I mentioned before we started recording this, I was reading it. I just got it recently, so I didn't have a chance to read the whole thing, but I started reading it, and I really liked the way it was written. And I was telling Debbie that, I get a lot of books just because I'm a blogger, and some of them are just not all that interesting, and I just can't get into them. But this one I was really immersed in, and so your writing style is really compelling.
Well, thank you. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you're mentioning, how you feel isolated too, because I think what happens when you're taking care of somebody too, or just being in a relationship where that's the only person that you've ever been around, you really don't have a chance to make a lot of friends, and or they, you get so immersed in the caregiving part of it that you become very isolated.
That's true. I was very sleep deprived. I was waking up a few times during the night. I had to give him nebulizer. I mean, there was no sleep. He was in
Yeah.
denial, so he turned down outside care. So we didn't have the kind of care that, I think would have helped. But
Yeah.
also, and part of that was my fault. I mean, our fault. We just led isolated lives together. We were pretty happy that way. So when he died, I was pretty alone, aside from my dad and my stepmom.
Yeah, that's nice that they're nearby. That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah. I know it can be really strange because you don't want to like just sit there and bawl and feel bad about yourself around other people too, I think sometimes.
that's true. You're right. Because I was trying to get out a bit to be with other people. So there were people I didn't know well. So I was doing a few group things. But at the same time, you don't want to cry on them, and you don't want to, when someone says, "How are you?" and you're going to be widowed, crying all over
Yeah.
strangers. And
Yeah.
people are uncomfortable and enough with grief. So there was that too. And then I had widow fog, so I couldn't do much. I could
Yeah.
do a lunch 10 minutes away. A lot more just wasn't going to happen. I could, even with the phone, I was getting lost.
Yeah. And I can relate to that. What happened with me was when my boyfriend passed away, it was right before the pandemic. So I was spending a couple of years taking care of him. And then the pandemic happened. So then it was like really being isolated because I was stuck in an apartment by myself and then had to move out of it and stuff. So it was kind of crazy.
That would
But
be so hard. I mean, you couldn't even do the kinds of things that like go to a gym or a yoga studio, things that I found somewhat
yeah,
helpful.
yeah, yeah, it was just sort of like just stuck there. That was it. Yeah, it's difficult. And then you kind of relive everything that happened. You kind of keep seeing it in your head.
That's what happened for me, and that got me kind of messed up. And
Yeah.
that's why the hungover widow, because I was drinking more than, and I was
Uh,
just because you're alone. I mean, I lived alone and nights alone, and I'd put on music, I'd get a drink, and I would just kind of relive it. I didn't want to,
mhm.
but those were my final memories. Maybe that's for you too. That's what your memories are, right? Those are your final memories.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens with any kind of death too, because I'll like relive my mother, and I was with my mother when she passed away, and just all of that. It's just kind of haunting in a way. But then you remember all the good things too. And as you mentioned too, you were talking about emotions. Your emotions kind of flip around. Like, for a while I was really pissed off about some stuff. you know, my boyfriend was a little bit more on the difficult side. So it was like, and he drank too much, and I think that partly caused what happened to him. But like, you just kind of get mad at certain things, and then you feel, you know, emotional about the good things that have happened, and it's just sort of a up and down kind of experience.
I totally agree. Yeah, at first I was so angry because the way he'd been in denial, we'd had 32 years, so we never had a real goodbye. I was
Mhm.
completely unprepared for his death. He paid
Yeah.
bills. He had our home like computer system, TV stuff was super complicated. I was really
So was
angry.
mine.
I was angry that he was in denial. Couldn't even watch it. I barely watch a movie. I was really
Yeah.
pissed. And then after a while, I started to understand that he couldn't control the denial and that he was always such a good person. And I flashed back to really good memories we had. But, it took a few years to kind of even out and see all the good times. So, obviously it took a while to write the book, to write something that was reasonably even keeled and had,
Yeah.
maturity to it.
It's funny when you're talking about the TV. I had the same
Mm.
problem because our TV, I swear it had like five remotes, and that you'd have to switch this and switch that. And I just like, oh my gosh, now that I'm in this house now, we just have one remote. It turns on streaming, that's it. We don't have all these other like other things attached to it, like a laser disc.
Yes, we had laser disc. We had laser disc changers.
Yeah.
When we had the DVDs. We had I think we may have dumped the laser disc, but we had like the DVD player, the DVD carols. There were the bazillions of them.
Yeah.
Some way to get to a news or a TV input, which wasn't part of the system. So we had a screen TV, so it had to come down off the wall. You can only watch it in the dark. I mean, surround processors, amps, it flicked to do different things when depending on what you're listening to. It was ridiculous. I hope he's not angry from wherever he is, but at some point I got rid of everything and I just got like a TV and I used the TV sound. Oh, I had an amp. I had a couple amps, but and the guy's like, well, you could do this to improve it. You could do that. And I'm like, no, I just want it pretty and simple.
Exactly. Yeah. Just as simple as possible.
Yes.
That's so funny. Yeah, I had to get rid of a lot of stuff. He was sort of a hoarder, and I did have to move. And oh my gosh, getting rid of stuff was a lot of work.
It is.
There's things you just aren't prepared for. Just even when you've been through it, like I had been through it before, it's still difficult. So I think it's great that you're trying to get back into the dating scene. After losing 2 people, I was like, okay, I'm done. If somebody comes along and we can have like a casual relationship or something like that, that's fine. But I haven't been looking for like any kind of deep thing anymore, unless it just happens to happen. But tell me a little bit about your experience with the dating scene.
Oh, well, it was gruesome. 14 months after George died, I went on JDate, which is a Jewish dating site. Because I thought something a little smaller might be a good start and a little tamer, I'd hoped. And the guys, well, that was the first 3 or 4 or 5 chapters of my book. They were so bizarre and messed up. I could not invent these people. They had mommy issues, which is a stereotype, but that is what happened. They were pretty messed up. And then, I moved on to other sites. I wanted, my early 50s, I had to try Tinder. I mean, I had to see what that was, I was on a bunch of different sites and people were terrible. But, I wasn't in a great space either. I started dating too soon. I didn't have a great sense of myself and I was still figuring out, did I want something casual? And ultimately I decided I wanted another life partner. Right. And that's a whole different.
Well, you're young enough too. Yeah.
And then 5 years ago, after, I was on and off for 5 years. One relationship was longer. It was emotionally abusive. And I write about that later in the book. But that ended. And then 5 years after my loss, I found somebody and we've been together 5 years. So I did actually find somebody online. And a year and a half ago, we moved into a new home together.
That's exciting. Oh, that's really great. I didn't get to that part yet. So that's really good to know. Wow. Yeah, I guess, I've known a lot of people that have found these wonderful life partners online. It's just
a rarity.
Yeah. No, that's really great. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a battle. I mean, I was ready to give up. I kind of treated it like a job, look at new faces, look at messages, see if anything's done for the day, do it again, done for the day. It's depressing. It's not a joyful experience.
No, I can imagine. Yeah. I went back to an old boyfriend that I had before I had met my husband. And, somebody I had totally had fallen in love with. And, it was a bad situation because he was married and all this stuff. And it was kind of a big mistake, really, in a way, but we had a lot of fun. And, we kind of had this really hot love relationship and that was good for a while.
You need that. I mean, I fell into something that wasn't the best choice right after George died, but that's one of the things that's hard, right? Is you judge yourself, but sometimes it's very, very hard to be alone and not have any touch or companionship. I think that's something that people should be more comfortable talking about and being able to say that,
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, it's difficult when you're living by yourself. I ended up living with two women that are my same age, so we're kind of like the Golden Girls.
Oh, fun.
We have two houses that are next to each other, and two of us are in one house, and the person who owns the property, who was a friend of mine in high school, lives next door. So we're kind of like, it's good because, if somebody fell, somebody could pick you up. You're not all by yourself. So that's a good thing. But tell me about some of the bad experiences you had, like just some examples.
Okay, well, the very first date, real date after George died, I found a guy on JDate, mortgage broker, MBA, looked like Alec Baldwin, but fit. And the guy seemed to really like me. He was very funny. We had a few lunches. We go out for dinner. We're in San Francisco. We were holding hands. I mean, this is romantic. Get back to my place. He's staying over because he lived really far away. He's staying on the couch. And he just looks at me and he says, I need you to know something. For a long time, I've been really unhappy. I'm like, oh, maybe I can make you happy. And then he just like, this blonde lady he dated just ruined his life. And now she was ruining my evening. And I thought after, okay. And then there was a couple others. And then the next morning I took him out to brunch. He'd stayed on the couch and I figured, okay, anyway, I was like, okay. I mean, this guy was such a downer. And it was so ironic to me that here I was looking for the first time toward the future, right? And I have somebody in the past. And I really didn't have a lot of sympathy because I loved my husband and he died and I couldn't do anything about it. This schmuck just kept keeping bad women and then telling the next one about it, like this self-perpetuating cycle, right?
Yeah. And then, I read that part. That was funny. Yeah. That's funny. So where did you have good luck? Like, was there an app that you had good luck on, or was one better than the others? I don't know. Never tried them.
I think it's very personal. For me, the best quality of people was hiking groups. Now, I didn't find anybody or really date anybody from there, but I really found that a good thing because in my area, your hikes have 40 people, different people come and go. You get nice people who like nature. And they're not trying to, whine about a cup of coffee or get you into bed. I know. It's just very natural. And you meet a variety of people who are generally health conscious, which I am too. So I recommend that because you get on with your life.
Yeah.
For you, it might be a theater group, people who do, I know some people do improv or whatever their passion is. For me, the best app was OkCupid. It's where I met my partner. And what I like about it, not all those stupid questions, people generally put more information about themselves. I found it very confusing on some apps where it's like, here's a picture of a guy and he likes mysteries and sunsets. And you're like, okay, well, do you have kids? What's your stability? Are you, come on. So I like that because generally people have more information in their profiles. And I'm in Northern California and I found more Bay Area people. So it had a better group of people close to me and the interests aligned a little more with mine.
That sounds good. Yeah, that's good. And I really believe too, when you're doing things that interest you, you're going to find somebody with a similar interest, like hiking, which is great and it's healthy and everything. Like, I think the worst place to meet somebody would be in a bar.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, people that just plan to hang out and get drunk all day is like, sorry, I don't need that.
Yeah, I live in a small town now, and there is a group of guys who are kind of older and I think mostly divorced. And they're kind of at the bar, mid-afternoon. And, as the evening gets on and maybe you're going by there, like I go by there to go to the restroom with my partner, it's like, this is not appealing. I was afraid. I never went to bars by myself. I've never felt comfortable doing that.
No.
I was raised pretty conservatively.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. Yeah, it's not my favorite place to hang out at all.
Yeah.
How did you find a lot of men like younger women, obviously. Did you have a problem with that at all? Like when you were online dating, did you see that happening a lot? Because a lot of these old geezers want to have somebody that's like 20 years younger than them.
I know. I did, find a couple guys I usually wound up dating people who were older than I was by a few years, a couple 10, one guy was 13. I never really had a problem with, if somebody contacted me, they probably wanted to meet me. I had professional pictures taken.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know if that was probably shallow, but they were really good pictures. So
Yeah.
I didn't have that problem. And I dated several men who were my own age, and that was fine. My current partner is about 2 or 3 years older than I am. So I really didn't have that problem. But I was
That's good.
impressed when I'd see somebody online who was, 60 or mid 50s, divorced, already has kids, and he's up for a new family. It's like, yeah, you bet. How are you doing with the one you got, dude?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. At that point,
I mean,
I know you see these like 70 or 80-year-old guys, starting a family. Like I know Tony Randall did that when he was, I don't know, 80 or something. And Rupert Murdoch is just
I was
getting
gonna say
married
Rupert
again
Murdoch. Yeah, yeah.
at 90 something. That's pretty funny. So, what tips could you share with your audience on how to go about dating after a loss? What would you say?
As what I would say is wait until you formed yourself as a new person. I made the mistake of dating too soon. I really didn't know who I was because, for 32 years I've been we. And so I was looking very much to have somebody, because I was so lonely and isolated, to slot myself into their life. And I think
Mhm.
what's really important when you're doing this is to wait until you found who you are on your own so that you can deal with all the negative energy and the crap coming at you. And it doesn't like slice at you. It's more of a surface thing, like an irritation. So I would
Yeah.
say wait until you found yourself. And then the second thing I would say is do not put up with any crap. Women, I mean, our older women, I think we've been raised to be empathetic, to be really
Mhm.
kind, not to offend anybody, right? But
Right.
in that situation, negotiating isn't going to work, right? Some guys at your house you just met, like, oh, I want to come up, can I come in? The answer isn't you can stay for a little. The answer is no.
Yeah.
Don't push. I met too many people who were pushy, and it did feel like a battle of the wills. So you need to know yourself, and you need to have the self-esteem and the wherewithal and even the chutzpah not to put up with any crap and kind of go against how a lot of women were raised.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Because I know, well, when I was young, it was during the early 70s and stuff. So everybody was kind of like jumping in bed with everybody. And it was hard to say no to people. You really have to do that,
Yeah,
especially now
yeah,
because you can catch stuff.
yeah. And also, these guys don't have your interests at heart, and
Hmm.
it all feels very juvenile. I mean, if someone's telling you that they can't live without you, they're mesmerized. They see a future. I mean, that's crud. You really have to have a bullshit detector, and nobody ever
Hmm.
died of blue balls.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good advice. Well, thank you so much. This is
Mm.
really exciting. Um, tell everybody where they can get your book or about your website and stuff like that.
Sure. If you want to find out more about me or the book, I am on, I'm DebbieWeissAuthor.com. I have podcasts that I've done on there too. So DebbieWeissAuthor.com is where to find me. My book, available as is on Amazon, is the simplest, and it can be ordered through local bookstores, or you can ask for it at your local library, which I would really appreciate because I think it's wonderful to be in libraries, and the local bookstores are so important. But other
Yeah.
than that, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram, not surprisingly, as Debbie Weiss Author. And I answer people. If some people contact me and they're sad, I answer. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, I believe you can download the first chapter from my book on the website, so you can give it a test drive. You
Cool.
don't have to commit to it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
great. All right.